Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Walking Dead TV podcast. I'm Jordan from Jersey, joined this week by Aaron North, Richard Chubtoad Sheldon, and Return from the Dead, Russell Latham. How's everybody doing?
Good.
I am Dolphin Smooth.
That's too much info. That's what I know.
So this week on the podcast, we're discussing episode 505 of The Walking Dead, Self-Help. But Russ, it's been a few episodes since you've been able to make it on the show, so what have you been thinking of this season so far?
Very, very happy with it, except for last week's episode, which I really wanted to be on the show last week, but just some stuff going on. I couldn't. I would give the last week's episode a 2, but everything else has been solid. 4, 4.5. I like that it started out with a bang and things got moving. I like now that things are kind of splitting off a little bit, so we're getting kind of these separate stories so they can focus, which is nice. Rather than we talked about this in the past, rather than kind of getting these episodes where everybody kind of gets short shrift and because of commercial breaks and things like that, it never seems like you're getting a full story. So I like that we're dedicating these to these characters, except for last week. Like I said, the problem I had with last week's episode, and I apologize, I'm way behind on listening to, so I didn't get a chance to listen to what you guys thought, but don't want to rehash too much of it. But the cop played by Christine Woods, like to me, her motivation was complete nonsense. Like I didn't buy it whatsoever, and I think that's what really hurt that episode was just like this random area where these, this hospital where these people are, and I just didn't buy anything. It just, I don't know, it just seemed shoehorned in.
Russ, basically, we're mostly all on the same page as far as kind of regard for the season goes. Even if Jordan liking last week's episode more than the rest of us did, it's still, we acknowledge that it's weaker than the previous weeks before it. So, I think we're all pretty satisfied with the season so far, even with, one kind of short straw in the mix.
Yeah, and it's not even that Beth is gone. That part of it, I think, adds another layer to it. I just think they could have probably done something a little better than what they did. But it ended very strong, I will say that. For as much as I was unhappy with the episode, like if I had to judge like the last 15 minutes, I'd probably give that probably a solid, 3.75, close to a 4. I thought it ended very strong, but it's just the first 3 quarters of that episode were just kind of a slog for me.
Yeah, one of the comments I made last week was hopefully it proves us wrong and it somehow planted seeds for on down the road of the season and for something awesome. I'm kind of doubting it, but that's my hope because I was so let down last week.
So, gentlemen, shall we get into discussing episode 505?
Let's.
Alrighty, Self-Help was written by Heather Belson and Seth Hoffman and directed by Walking Dead mainstay Ernest Dickerson.
One of my favorite directors of the series.
And we had one guest actor noted on Wikipedia for this episode, and that was Andrea Moore as Ellen Ford, who we'll get into in a moment. So the episode starts with Abraham, Rosita, Tara, Maggie, Glenn, and Eugene on the bus to Washington, D.C. And shortly after they pass a small group of walkers where they've been talking and chatting and just getting to know each other a little bit more, an explosion from underneath the bus causes Abraham to lose control, and the bus flips over.
Yeah, all that happens, but there's also just a lot of fun conversation going on.
The conversation is great, and that's why I kind of stopped there. I didn't want to skip past it because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, which is something that you don't get much of on The Walking Dead. I like having fun with the characters for a change. It's nice.
It's funny, as I was watching this, and then that happened with the bus, and then it flips, and I was like, okay, that's really convenient. A whole mess of walkers. I was looking for like a flat tire or something.
Me too.
I was like, what is going on? Like they're being, I thought it was like really contrived, or they were forcing this, or it was like, I was like, okay, the coincidence thing is really, can kind of wear thin. And so I kind of put that in the back of my brain. I'm like, maybe I ought to just kind of chill out a little bit and give it some time, and maybe this will make much more sense. And as we found out later on, it did, and I was like, that was well done.
Well, and even beyond that, and after they beat the walkers, which I'll go back and talk about that, but they finish taking down the walkers and they start walking, and no one asks, so what just happened? Because it was so out of left field. Like I went back and, even in the middle of the episode, jump back to see, like, okay, Abraham's looking off to the side, he's not really watching the road, but then he looks back at the road, and it's another 10 seconds before the bus explodes, and it was just like, how are they not questioning what just happened? It was a little weird to me.
I think he did kind of acknowledge there was some kind of mechanical failure. He just couldn't necessarily
The bus flipped over. That's more than a mechanical failure.
Well, the bus
that is
flipped
what
over
happened,
because it hit that car on the side, didn't it?
I guess I thought it was already.
What seemed to happen to me was there was a small explosion, which was more than likely the intake or whatever, the glass shattering through that, and then that either spooked Abraham or it knocked the bus enough to where he jerked the wheel, and then he hit a car and it flipped.
Yeah,
that's what I thought happened.
There was something happened. Yeah, like you said, like a small explosion that kind of started to lose control, and then with all the cars on the road, he hit something that knocked and flipped the bus over. The bus didn't just lift up off the ground. That's how it happens. Yeah.
We have levitating buses now. Why are we using this?
Yeah, but he's no Lori. Like he's not just flipping over buses because he's ignorant. Like, that's not him.
So the walkers hear the noise of the bus flipping over, and they move in. The group, before they even exit, they make their strategy, what they're going to do, which I thought again, it's nice to see a well-oiled machine of a team, even if it's not completely our normal cast of characters. But Abraham knows what he's doing, and Rosita seems to know as well. They escape the bus, and a terrified Eugene watches, but he's pretty much shell-shocked and can't do anything. Tara, who's been talking to him though, she hands him a knife, and she encourages him, and a walker's about to attack her. He attacks the walker. He doesn't quite kill it. She does, but at least he gets to feel like he did something, and it's nice to see him at least do something.
Teamwork.
Yes, exactly.
This whole action scene was like watching like that scene in Avengers where it's like a one shot of everybody. Like there's all these whip pans going from like each different character as they stab all the zombies in their heads and whatnot. It was like, yeah, all right, teamwork, let's do this. Yeah.
And we get a nice joke button to the end of the scene. Well, there's a couple things. You have the flashback before this, which I'll get to, but you have the beginning of our visual metaphor of the episode, which is the wound that won't heal, which is on Abraham's hand. And I forget who says, but you said, we'll go back to the bus and grab the first aid kit. And then as a nice end button to the sequence, the bus explodes and a fireball, which I thought was, again, maybe like Russ said, a little bit convenient, but funny. So I'll give that to them.
And since you brought up the whole flashback thing, we're going to talk more about it, I'm sure, but I just want to throw my 2 cents in on, I think that this is the best use and best way they've done flashbacks in the series so far, as far as the way it was shot, edited, how it was placed throughout the episode, how it informed for his mindset going throughout this entire episode. I really, really thought it was probably the best use of flashbacks The Walking Dead has done yet.
I mean, we haven't had a lot of flashbacks in the history of the show, like maybe 5 times altogether, but I think I'd agree with you. I think the one that started the season was pretty good as well, but this was probably the most solid. Not that the others have really been bad.
I would agree with that sentiment. I do think this whole handling, especially given what Michael Cudlitz does in this role in this episode in particular, I think he brings a lot to that whole flashback aspect that makes it very effective.
Now, question for you guys. Should I just do the whole flashbacks now, or should we save the flashbacks for the end? Because they're sprinkled throughout the episode, and I'm going to get them out of order, or not in the spot they're supposed to be. So what do you want to do? All right now we're all at the end.
Put them at the end.
Yeah, they're so brief that I think it's better to talk about them in a bunch.
I agree. So listeners, we'll get to them later on. We haven't forgotten them, don't worry. So the group is kind of questioning what they're going to do now. Eugene suggests they go back to the church. They're only, I think he says, like 12 or 15 miles out. And the bus has been destroyed, the supply's been destroyed. But Abraham says they must continue on, and the group follows him. That night, the group takes shelter in a library. Pretty cool looking library, too. I like the general design of it. And Rosita stitches up the wound that Abraham had on his hand using binding from books, which, again, very resourceful, and I love seeing that kind of stuff.
This whole scene is really awesome. I love that. I mean, it's very visual in the storytelling of showing you how these guys know what to do. You're in a library. They're showing them moving the bookshelves. Abraham's doing it. He's kind of whistling or humming a bit. We've got the book stuff. We have Tara taking the water out of the toilet. There's just a lot of just process that you're getting to see without having people just tell you what's happening. Like, this is what we need to do. They're just showing you this is what we're doing. It's really effective.
And my favorite, the chewing gum wrapper on the battery.
Now, Abraham was humming that song 3 or 4 times during the episode. Was that a song I should have recognized? I couldn't quite place the melody.
I couldn't place it either. I just figured it was kind of a comfort tune that he has.
Well, I kept expecting with the flashbacks for it to come back in some way. I expected it to be like something connected to his past, a song that he and his wife shared or something, or that he sung to his kids or something like that. I was a little bit surprised because it was so repetitive in the way they placed it throughout the episode that it didn't have some kind of payoff. But maybe I guess down the season they could do that.
That's true too. I think it was just more of the not necessarily payoff, but just more of a you come to understand that this is something he's done. He familiarizes himself with the scenario, and to get through that or to keep his mind occupied, he just kind of hums to himself or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean the flashbacks in the end of the episode aside, Abraham's actually. It's nice to see how level-headed he is throughout the episode. And maybe not level-headed is not the right word, but how much he is just in the swing of things and enjoying himself.
As long as he has purpose, as long as he has purpose, you definitely see him, acting as efficiently as possible.
Or when he's on top of a fire truck laughing. He's just that mission is really central to the character.
Yeah, I'll have a lot more to say about that when we get to that.
Okay, I think we all will. So Abraham talks to Glenn, and he thanks him for sticking with him after the crash. And he feels that the apocalypse has reached a point where everyone still alive is very strong. They might be strong and evil, or they might be strong and good, but the people who are left are strong. And he's very happy that Glenn has chosen to ally himself with Abraham and his group. And they set up the library as kind of a very nice fort, basically, that's defensible from the outside. But Abraham has some other sites some other things he set his sights on, and that is sleeping with Rosita. And I don't know if they've really hinted at it before this episode, but yes, Rosita and Abraham do have a sexual relationship. One that I guess technically includes Eugene, at least in the fact that he likes to watch the help section, which is very funny. Yeah. And Tara calls him out on it. And again, Tara and Eugene start to come to even more of an understanding. She encourages him and tells him, you are part of this team, you are strong. And she kind of tries to tell him that she gets him, even though she doesn't. It still helps him in the end.
I guess we haven't really got because we know because we read the comic, but I guess we didn't necessarily know that Abraham and Rosita were together in that way. But I certainly think I think it was implied that they were more than just good friends. But I don't know. I can't specifically place the indicator that said, "Hey, we're in a romantic relationship together." I can't recall that for the show at this time. But regardless, yeah, that was good on him. Not forgetting.
I always feel like someone's watching me.
And Eugene's head popping out of the book section there. That's I love that image. That's hilarious to me. Just his tuft of hair in his eyes, just leaning over the bookshelf.
Well, and especially Abraham and Rosita's reaction.
Oh yeah,
their
just
speech to Tara.
Yeah, they're just like, especially Abraham. He's like, whatever.
I mean, wouldn't you want to see that? He's smooth as a dolphin.
And as far as him and Tara talking, I like that. She's kind of the voice of the audience as far as Eugene goes, because presumably, again, not for comic readers necessarily, but we're supposed to be in the dark on what Eugene really knows, and so we're kind of in the position that Tara's in, where she's slowly getting to understand who this guy is, and it's nice. I really like the acting in this episode. I'll get to my thoughts on this episode obviously as we get to the end of it, but I really like seeing all these different characters, especially Tara, who, as you guys know, I was not a big fan of last season, but she's going to be a very useful character in my eyes, especially when she's serving as basically the audience's perspective.
Do you think that she's already figured it out before he reveals it?
No,
I don't think so.
Because I was kind of getting the feeling when they had their little conversation in the library that she was questioning it.
I think she's just trying to figure out why he's so weird.
Yeah.
Just like what
makes him tick.
Yeah, maybe trying to point out the fact that, dude, you're being extremely socially awkward and you need to cut it out because people deserve privacy and respect, and you're a weirdo.
Also, don't destroy our means of transportation. That whole spiel.
Yeah,
well, I think it goes further than that. I mean, outcasts tend to stick together. He seems to have Asperger's or some type of social disorder, and her being gay. I can see that camaraderie being there, where she sees someone else who just doesn't fit in society in some way, and she bonds to that. And that spoke to me at least.
It's a mix of her being gay, which I don't think has been really brought up too much in the show, and the fact
not recently,
and the fact that she was on the side of the bad guy, and she's still trying to kind of redeem herself in that sense of being this person that ruined this otherwise very good life for innocent people because she chose the wrong side unknowingly.
And we should mention, Eugene confides in Tara that he actually sabotaged the bus. He put crushed glass from light bulbs into the fuel line, and that caused the explosion. So he is starting to come clean to her a little bit. But Rich, you asked, do you think she gets it? I don't think she gets it. I don't think she was looking in that place. It's one of those things where we, as comic readers, we knew it was coming, or at least suspected what was coming based on the books. So we knew what to look for, but I don't think if you weren't looking for that, as she wasn't, you would find it.
I thought he was going to come clean there, too, by the way. I thought he was going to tell her only that he was full of it.
Yeah, I did too. And that was the thing. That's I'm just piecing it together because I thought, well, maybe Tara and Maggie talked, because then Maggie has that conversation with him when he's reading the book, and I'm just like, man, it seems like they may be suspecting something. I don't know. That was my take on it, but I could be wrong.
And then I love that Tara also takes a peek at the action across the library at the end of the scene.
Yeah.
Because you've got to.
I mean,
with, hands in her pockets, just like, what's going on over there? Like, just walking around.
It's two beautiful people. How could you not?
That mustache, man.
Yeah, boy. So the next morning, Rosita and Maggie suggest staying at the library for one more day to rest and gather more supplies, but Abraham is again persistent on getting to Washington, and so they keep going. Although you do see a few times during the episode where Rosita is starting to push back against Abraham a little bit. Not in a negative way, but just in a, maybe we should take a few extra hours here, a day here to regroup. It's not stopping, it's not going back, it's just pausing for a moment. But she still sticks by Abraham.
I mean, they get the mild argument during the scene, too, like before they even kind of talk about where to go next. Like, they get a small stat involving kind of Rosita holding, not necessarily Rosita, but like people holding him back, which is something that he doesn't want to do, which is kind of emphasized by having these flashbacks in between each kind of segment of the episode.
He almost bullied her. I mean, he was getting
He's getting testy. Yeah.
Well, and you can see it from both sides, and you can definitely you know that they're all, her included, are all saying things that make perfect sense. But and even to him, it probably makes perfect sense. But I get where he's coming from, because look, every time he's compromised his mission for the sake of rest, supplies, or helping others, I mean, Eugene shot up the truck. They've lost people. There's people that have died. Protecting Eugene. They almost got eaten. I mean, I get where he's coming from. Enough. Dilly-dally, and we're going to Washington.
Yeah, he's in this mode where he's presenting the greater good, but it's not in like a stubbornly frustrating way, and as opposed to someone like Shane, who was also fighting for the greater good, but was doing it in the wrong kind of way. Abraham, I can support this guy. I'm with what this character's representing. I may not necessarily agree with every choice he makes, but I see where he's coming from. It doesn't piss me off in the same way they can with other characters.
And on a side note, I gotta say, because I think this is the second of maybe 3 times we see in the episode, but I really like how they kind of casually throw in, I didn't think this was overdone, but casually throw in references to names and events that we didn't see, but that Rosita, Eugene, and Abraham know. The people they lost, the events that happened to them before they met up with our group. It was nice to see those hints at history there.
Yeah, for a show that has had trouble with subtlety, I'm very happy with that as well.
Yes. Bleeding hand wound that won't stop, maybe, anyway. But we can get into that later on. So the group comes across a fire truck, which they initially start up, and they're very happy about this fire truck because not only is it means of transportation, but it's 200 gallons of water, or some large amount of water inside the truck, so it helps fill two of their needs, water and transportation. It starts, and then it quickly breaks down, and they realize there's zombie guts and gore all over the intakes and stuff. And I like that. I believe it's Rosita is the one who actually corrects Abraham. He thinks it's the front grill, but it's actually the intake for the engines on top.
Yeah.
Nice to give her again some more depth as someone who apparently understands fire trucks, which I don't.
It's nice, by the way, that, I mean, as much as Cudlitz and Josh McDermott as Eugene are doing kind of the heavy lifting as far as the acting goes this episode, Rosita, Christian Serratos, she's pulling her weight as well. Like, she's being more than just, like, hot girl in hot pants. Like, so it's nice work from this whole trio, I would say.
And really, it's been her first opportunity to do that in the show so far.
Sure.
And it's nice to see that it wasn't that they were holding back because she couldn't do it. They were holding back for whatever reason, but she can do it. And hopefully gets to do it more in the future. So, because they moved the fire truck about 4 feet forward before it died, it stopped the fire truck from holding shut a door that was right behind the truck that they couldn't see. And so now zombies start pouring out, they start attacking them, but there's a lot of them, and then from the heavens comes rain, except it's Eugene on top of the fire truck using the fire hose, because he wants to drink from the fire hose, the zombies do, and he starts blowing them away, and everyone is very impressed, including me as a member of the audience.
Yes, because it's an awesome sight to behold.
Yes, as their heads are exploding, and the skin is just being ripped off them.
See, my head was exploding for a completely different reason. Because, so, A, that fire truck would hold 1,000 gallons of water, not 500.
Well, they were guesstimating.
I know. Just to let you know out there.
That's right, I forget we have an inside man
Yeah,
here.
it'd be 1,000 gallons. 2, there's no way that thing pumps any water without the engine running, period.
I mean, I saw it happen on the TV, so.
TV doesn't lie, Russ. TV
Now, here's a
doesn't
question for you,
lie.
though, as somebody who does have experience with this. I know the water pressure out of a fire hose is devastatingly hard, and you don't want to point it at a living person because it can injure them. But I mean, we are saying the zombies are more decomposed, and if a knife can go right through their heads, no problem. Is it plausible to you that in a world where they're that decomposed and soft-boned, that would work?
Yeah, I mean, because you're thinking, like you said, they're pretty decomposed. The pressure out of there is probably about 100, and maybe if they have it really cranked up. I mean, you have to really crank the pump up. Maybe you got like 140, 150 psi out of that hose. But that's about it. And at that rate, you'll empty that truck really fast.
Gotcha.
As somebody who's literally sat on a gun deck on the top of a truck that size for probably 2 to 3 hours, putting out round bales of hay on fire, it doesn't take long to go through 1,000 gallons of water.
Can I just say I love that it's called the gun deck?
It's awesome. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Be
But,
sure to read the article, what Russ picked out, what The Walking Dead got wrong about fire trucks.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Only you can prevent walker fires.
Now, I just want to say that not just getting hit by the water, but just the zombies slipping, sliding around and stuff. If nobody's done it yet, somebody needs to go on YouTube and just put that scene to the Benny Hill theme music. I think it would be great.
But all kidding aside, I mean, obviously I had some logical issues with the way that worked, but it didn't ruin it for me. I mean, I understood what they're trying to do, and I got what they're getting. I mean, the fact that the engine wasn't running, I mean, that really doesn't change much, as far as the outcome of what they're trying to do. The point of that was to show that Eugene
Took the initiative.
Had, obviously as a fairly smart guy, was able to get up there and, pull the gang out of a jam, especially after he, openly questioned whether or not he would, well, I guess at this point he didn't really down himself so much. I guess he did a little bit to Tara, but...
Well, the way he presents, like, when he gets into these kind of life or death scenarios is he tries to explain it as he had a couple options. And so, like, with that one where he saves Tara, it's more of like, well, I was damned if I did this or damned if I did that. So, like, help you out and be damned and hopefully leave a chance on that one. Like, that's how he kind of breaks things down. So, yeah,
Which is also kind of what she told him earlier, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Something like, you either die helping other people or you die being a coward.
Right. So again, like I said, definitely suspension of disbelief for me, just because I've been on that side of it. I was kind of like, really? And just kind of scratched my head. But 95% of everybody out there would not know otherwise one way or the other. So
Well,
just,
maybe
no inside baseball.
Eugene figured out a way to do it without the truck running. Remember, he is smarter than you.
Yeah. Okay.
So they continue on in the fire truck, and it eventually breaks down again in the middle of nowhere. And Glenn notices that the wind's picked up, and there's a really bad smell coming up from over the hill. So they continue on over the hill to see what it is, and it's a giant ranch, or maybe it even looked to me almost like a fairground. But oftentimes those are the same things. That is just completely overrun with walkers. This is a herd if we've ever seen one on the show.
Yeah.
And everyone basically says, "Well, we clearly can't go here, so we need to turn around, head back, or head around it. Can't go over it, can't go through it. Gotta go around it." Type deal. But Abraham says they're going to move forward, they're going to fight, they're going to do it. They're not going back, they're not turning around, they're not stopping. He's not being halted on his mission. And so, as you might expect at this point, a large fight breaks out, and Rosita begs Abraham to come to his senses, but instead he grabs Eugene and starts to pull him towards the ranch. Glenn jumps in and tries to stop them, but Eugene finally yells at both of them and confesses he was lying all along. He is not a scientist. He does not know how to save the world. He was only doing this to save his own skin and to give them a mission to continue on with, but he does not know how to stop the walkers. So the secret's out. We can now stop tiptoeing around it, which we've been doing for ever since he was introduced in the show. Yes, this was all a sham. I mean, although I kind of hoped otherwise. I kind of hoped he really did have a plan, or was a scientist, and it just wouldn't work because if it works, the show's over. But yes, indeed, it is the same as in the comics. Eugene is a liar.
Well, and it's a little different as far as how it's revealed, because in the comics, I won't spoil it, but it's a different action that happens that causes him to have to come clean with it. I was really hoping, because we're going to talk about the flashbacks here at the end, but I was really hoping that, when he met up with Abraham there in that flashback, that we were going to learn that he was an 8th grade science teacher.
Like Ernst.
Or like Walter White, I was assuming.
Either way.
You've got smarts on you. But anyway,
Wasn't that what he was in the comics?
I have no recollection of what he was beforehand. I mean, it would fit.
I don't know. For some reason, that's what I'm remembering from the comics. Maybe I'm just, messed with it.
It's quite possible. He certainly got the acumen for it. I just don't know if that was actually his job.
Yeah, and according to Wikipedia's biography on Eugene from the comics, he was an overweight high school teacher from prior to the apocalypse.
There you go.
With all that said, I much like how I really liked how we got rid of the Hunter so early on in the season. I'm happy Eugene's secret's out.
Yeah, we can move on to new things now.
Yeah, it also leaves me with a wonder, like, where we go now. Like, as much as it's neat to be like, wow, The Walking Dead has Drive, we're going to Washington D.C. That's the overall goal. We know where we're heading. I like also being completely in the dark on where we're going at this point. Like, it's neat to have that kind of propulsion has suddenly been stopped in its tracks because, hey, guess what? That's not a plan that's going to work at all. So we need to regroup and figure things out. Obviously, there's other characters we have to deal with, but at the same time, it's like I don't know what the overall goal of the series is right now in a way that excites me rather than just leaves me going. So now what? I'm more excited about that, which is great for me. I'm happy.
Well, and I also think in every circle of Walking Dead show fans, there's always the few that were diehard comic readers, a few that are diehard show watchers that don't do either. And there's going to be those people in the group, like me, for example, that will be saying, "Oh, you should really be reading the comics. You should be reading it because you would know about Eugene." So eventually, the people are going to start trying to figure out what's going on just based off what they talk with their friends. So that's why I'm glad they revealed it this quick in the season, because I thought it was going to drag out at least till the middle of the season or the end of the season. And let's get it out of the way. Let's move on. And I'm assuming that they're going to head back towards the church at this point.
They have to now, I guess.
That was the interesting thing, because I was not expecting that reveal to happen in this episode. I mean, I'm with you guys. I'm glad it did because, again, we kind of have that, readers of the comic know, okay, it's going to happen eventually. So I'm glad it did. And I think even if you haven't been reading the comic, I imagine you probably know there's something up with this dude that just ain't right. Like, you would get a sense that there's something going on with him.
You have to at least think that the show's it's not about to leave Georgia to go to Washington, D.C. to show us some kind of cure plot. Like, that's probably not going to happen.
Right.
Well, and no cure plot could ever work.
Yeah.
The show's
right, yeah.
Well, not only that, but it's interesting because Eugene, even though he admits to being a fraud, he does make a fairly decent case for why he thought the way he did, and that maybe going to D.C. is not such a bad idea after all. Like, maybe from an endgame perspective, they should still think about going there because he did make sense. Like, okay, of any place in this country, what's going to be the area that they're going to most likely be overly protected, have some sort of command and control structure left in place more so than anywhere else in the country. I mean, other than maybe like NORAD or something like that. The heart of Washington D.C. is probably right up there. So
for sure, and like even if the situation was presented differently for Abraham, where it wasn't a sudden shock that ruined everything about what his drive was,
sure,
he'd still be a guy that could probably understand what Eugene was going for by getting to DC, and that would still give him purpose. And given where his character was at when he first met Eugene, purpose is what he needs in life because he has something else to live for.
Right, and that was what was the most, I think, probably my favorite part of the episode was just the devastation and the defeat from Abraham. Once he realized that this has all been just a load of horse crap, and he's put all his faith in Eugene, and he's defied the group, and he's butted heads with everybody to protect this guy and to stand behind him. I've always thought in the comic and in the show that Abraham there's something in the back of his head that had to tell him, like, even if this guy is full of crap, this is my purpose, this is my mission, this is my drive forward. And I think the fact that Eugene vocalized that he was a fraud, I think that's what it took to shatter Abraham, that he was able to push down any doubt that a reasonable human being would have in believing this numbskull is this super genius that can fix the world. That hope is what kept him going, took his mind off of the loss that he has.
And it's also, I mean, I really like Abraham as a character both in the comic and what Michael Douglas has done for him in the series. Like I've said before, this like Douglas was one on the short list of people's like I can see this realistically happen, and it did, and I'm so happy that it's like delivered in the way that it has. But Josh McDermott's performance as Eugene, I really like this too, and this is certainly a showcase episode for him just as well.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to that performance where I see everything he's done, and you can call it cowardice and him a liar and whatever you want to label it, but I don't dislike this guy. Like I see where he was coming from, and I feel bad for him, I guess, in a sense, but I don't feel like I'm against him now because of his being a lie. And that's a tricky kind of role to play. I'm very impressed by that.
Well, and it's probably a trickier line to write, and I think they did that very, very well. It's a very thin line that if you cross it, especially with what comes next between Abraham and Eugene at the end of the episode, which we'll get into in a minute, like who you're rooting for in that moment is gonna really impact the viewer, and I think they walk that line very well.
For sure, yeah. As much as I like to criticize the show for its writing, I'm happy to praise it when the writing's very strong, and I do think this episode has some very strong writing. So kudos to the writing team on this one.
So after he says he was lying, he says, and I kind of said this before, but he said he's only really smarter than everybody else. He's just a generally smart person, and he thought this was getting to Washington was his best chance of survival, and that giving the group a mission was their best chance of survival as well. Rosita's deeply hurt, and she again brings up the people that died for him throughout their journey.
Oh, he names them. He specifically names them. There's like this, I mean, she brings up like all the people that died, and he's like, I haven't forgotten. And like there's a shot from Abraham's perspective looking at Eugene as he's reading these names. It's just a really well shot.
Including Bob gets a shot. Mm-hmm. And Abraham, who's still coming to terms with this, basically just turns and starts beating Eugene unconscious and in a bloody mess, and then he walks a few feet away, falls to his knees, and starts to cry.
That beating it gives Eugene is a beating. Like he nails him, he elbows him in the face, which knocks his head against the fire truck, and then he falls face first into the asphalt. That's rough for Eugene.
And they play it at the end of the episode, like even on Talking Dead, like is he alive? He's alive. Like let's not even kid ourselves. But it was a savage beating. Yeah. Which is probably a good chance to now go into the flashbacks, because that also starts with a very savage beating. Mm-hmm. So we have these series of flashbacks, and like I correctly predicted last week, it was a flashback. We start with a man being beaten to death with a can of beans or some type of can, and then the camera pans up to show you that it's Abraham. This was the scene we saw on Talking Dead last week. And then he starts calling out for his wife Ellen, and he finds her hiding with her 2 children. And he tells them that they're safe, but all 3 of them are clearly terrified of him. And he tries to it's okay, we're gonna be fine, we just need to get out of here. And they go to sleep, and the next morning he wakes up to find Ellen and the kids are gone, and she left a note saying, "Don't try to find us." So he goes outside, completely ignoring the note, to find them, and he eventually finds her dead body and the children's dead bodies, all having been eaten by walkers. He pulls out his gun, he prepares to commit suicide, and then he hears a screaming man being chased by 3 walkers, and he turns and sees it's Eugene, who he has not met yet at this point in the story. He saves him, and then as he's walking away, Eugene stops him and tells him he's on a secret mission to Washington, and he requests his help, giving Abraham a new reason to live.
There's so much here.
And we also introduce the visual metaphor of the wound on his hand here, don't we, in the flashbacks?
I mean, it's emphasized in them. You get that kind of towards that beginning section when they first get out of the bus. It's like that wound of mine. He like mentions it and passes.
But doesn't he get the wound in the flashbacks?
I guess yeah. There might be. You might see his bleeding hand after he like beats the guy or whatever with the cans at the beginning. That might be it there. Yeah. Regardless, it makes me wonder like how Eugene's going to play out from this point now that the secret's out, because there's when Eugene's kind of just running and screaming from 3 walkers. There's something different about how he is, and obviously there's kind of the adrenaline from running away from walkers zombies coming after you that can make that so. But I feel like
running is loosely here.
Yeah. Yes. It was painfully dashing. But him pronouncing that he has a secret mission to another person, it seems like there is a kind of change in his character's tone, and I'm very curious if that's going to affect the way we see him delivering lines from this point on, given that now that mission's off.
He no longer has to pretend he's a scientist.
Exactly.
He can just be smarter than you.
Yeah. So like, because we've thought before that he has like Asperger's, he has some kind of condition that he's obviously a smart person, but he has some kind of perhaps a condition, perhaps a disability or some kind of whatever you want to call it that makes him address people in a certain way. I'm curious if that's still going to be a thing for him.
I think it will be, but like you said, we all think he's we do know he's pretty smart, but I mean he's not just smart intelligence; he's very street smart, very cunning. I mean the way he was able to read Abraham's situation, upon coming to this scene of this guy with a gun in his mouth, mutilated bodies of a family, to immediately put it together and to know exactly what to say to get this guy to come along to be there to protect him. I mean that was pretty good, summation of facts and quick thinking in like the 20 seconds it took for him to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the flashbacks, Rich, you talked about how much you really enjoyed these flashbacks. I agree. And something I really like is how they cut away like really abruptly every time out, like except for like the final one for obvious reasons. But I really like the way you get enough of it, and it wouldn't like end at a point that makes sense necessarily. It just ends at a point because we're done. We're moving back to the present. I really like that kind of handling of that structure.
Yeah, there was no impetus for them to put a button on those scenes.
They stopped. It was I mean, directorialized. I really like this episode. I mean, I think Ira Dickerson does a great job of kind of presenting all these different scenarios, be it the action stuff, stuff, be it this dramatic stuff, be it the flashbacks. Like I think he does a great handle of the kind of the kind of presentation of an episode like this that's dealing with a select group of characters, but still has to deliver on being an episode of The Walking Dead. I think this is kind of the perfect example of how to do that kind of thing.
It was an interesting exchange too, just the cutting and intercutting of these flashbacks, because they were very short and very abrupt. You know, so when they went out of the flashback, I mean, it was almost like if you weren't really paying attention, it would be easy to be confused as to what was going on, because they were, you know, it wasn't like they were, you know, kind of finished a thought even. It was almost like, again, very jarring, like in the, you know, they're getting towards the end of a sentence, so to speak, and then, you know, boom, we get this cut. So
It puts you in the state of mind of Abraham, where he probably
Sure,
has
absolutely.
kind of think that, like, you know, flashes of memories without having coherent thoughts about these things. Which,
Well, and it informs us viewers just piecemeal at a time, but we're able to slowly start putting it together each time they give us one of these flashbacks, but we don't quite put it all together. I mean, I kind of had it, you know, based on what we know as comic readers, but correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking in the comic, though, his whole thing was he lost his family as far as they got separated, and that was part of his whole deal for going to Washington, was also to hopefully find them.
no, they were they died. He found
Did they die? Okay.
He found their bodies as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and the flashback showing you what he was, you know, attacking those men in the grocery store, I think it was. You know, they even talk about it on Talking Dead. That lines up perfectly with his comic book backstory. Those men were people from his group who, you know, attacked his family while he was out on a supply run, and he came back and did what needed to be done to them. But I have no idea where I was going with that sentence. What was your question, Rich, before?
Maybe just pointing out the kind of Abraham's backstory in the comic versus the TV show. But with that said, Jordan, I didn't watch Talking Dead, but I was aware, someone wrote it on the Facebook page, where there was backstory apparently given regarding Abraham in that scenario. And it's the kind of thing where, no, I as a person that didn't watch Talking Dead to hear that part, I wouldn't necessarily say that's exactly what I thought of when kind of piecing these flashbacks together. But at the same time, I had a pretty good idea of what was going on, and I can't fault the show for that. I think it's, again, a good way of kind of subtly layering in what it is that put Abraham in a certain position that led to his family reacting in that kind of way. Like, obviously,
Well, and you don't need that information, and that was what I think I was going with. You know, you don't need that information. They gave you exactly as much as you needed. If you want more information, you can go read the books. But it was basically just showing you from his perspective the important parts. You know, he's not going to dwell on what happened to his family, what these men did to his family, but he's going to remember the things that he was not there to stop, or that they ran away, that he tried to find them. You know, this is very well in all the ways we talk about it being abrupt, it being just from his point of view, really encapsulated that this was not just narrative device, which it was a narrative device, but it was also what was going on in his head, you know, during these scenes, him remembering these moments.
Basically, I can't wait for J.R.R. Tolkien's Walking Dead appendices. I think those will be really informative.
The Shade Million.
You know, the thing about his wife, though, too, and I kind of get the kids thinking this way, and I understand the wife being afraid, too, after, you know, hearing and witnessing what Abraham did to those men, but no matter how horrific it is to have heard or watched that, how does that compare to what they were doing to them before he arrived? The attacking, beating, raping, all of that stuff. To me, he was more of a hero in the situation. I get them being afraid, but the mother
He
should have
looked
been
like a monster by the end of the scene.
I
Like, he
get
looked
that.
inhuman.
I get that, but I mean, what they had apparently gone through with all those men before he came back, I don't know. I mean, it just seems a little. I don't know. I just would expect for a wife to, a significant other to stick around to talk through. I don't know. It just
It's very hard. I think it's a very hard thing to trace, especially because, you know, you're not that person. But if I had to put my finger on it, like in my own way, I would say her priority is to take care of her children. And if their children can't decipher between what's a monster and what's not, and they think their father falls in that category, she needs to get them out of there. And I think I would like to think that's probably where. I mean, obviously she was disgusted
I can see
by
that,
the actions of Abraham as well. But I think she wants to protect her children. I think that was kind of.
well, we don't know what else took place. I mean, that was supposed to, or what appeared to be the final straw. You know, what else had they witnessed or been exposed to or
That's
dealt
true.
with before we
Yeah,
got to that point? And it could have been just like, okay, this is the 5th time he's come across people, and maybe, you know, he's just way too aggressive in being protective. Like, he's just assuming if somebody comes around, they have ill intentions, or, you know, they're going to, you know, rob us or kill us or whatever. And so he just takes the offensive every time and doesn't allow, you know, it's just, you know, living in a manner, like, you know, like Aaron was saying, you know, she has her kids to think of, and, you know, that was just the final straw. That's the way I took it.
That's good.
I also think it also works equally as well if they haven't seen him do this before, because this seemed to be very early on in the zombie apocalypse, and if it's just recently the world has gone to hell, and then all of a sudden the switch flips in him, and I'm not saying the switch is flipping in him, but in their point of view, because he was a soldier and he's, you know, presumably had to do some, you know, not so pleasant things in the past. If things have only recently gone bad and then this happens, I can also see that just completely waiting her and the kids out to the point where, like, we need to find some other place. Because, you know, we get a little bit jaded as viewers of the show. We've seen horror after horror after horror on a weekly basis.
I mean, the week before last week with the way they dispatched the cannibals. I mean, there's some nasty stuff going on that people have.
I don't get the feeling that his wife and kids have seen anything close to that yet. This was the first horror they saw, and it was a doozy. So I don't know. I can see it working either way.
To back up a bit, we kind of look over the many episodes, get much to do, but Glenn and Maggie are around. I would say the spotlight's clearly on Abraham, Eugene, and then to a lesser extent Tara and Rosita as well. But Glenn and Maggie are here, and I do like the conversations that Glenn has with Abraham, and then that Maggie has with Eugene, like in parts of the episode. I think there's just it's an example of the show kind of taking a breath and also presenting some information without making it sound like kind of fake deep, pseudo deep, as the show is wont to do sometimes. Even Maggie, when she's getting into this kind of parable about Samson, it's like, oh, I mean, it kind of links into the episode without feeling fake. And
feels like something she would know coming from a religious family.
exactly, yeah. And so I just want to point that out because they don't get enough to do these days, which makes me kind of think less of Glenn and Maggie, even though they're characters I like. They haven't done much lately besides just be together and smile. So and even Glenn, I like Glenn stepping up as authority. You know, I mean, Abraham's a big guy, a really big guy, and you know, seeing Glenn just be like, you know, yelling at him and coming back at him. You know, power to Glenn, he's trying, he's doing his part.
After he's already been beaten down by Abraham once in the series. Yeah. You know, he knows exactly what he's getting himself into this time, and he still does it.
I think it's time for Maggie and Glenn to have another pharmacy run.
Oh, and that zombie horde, by the way. Like when they got over the hill, I saw like the farm and I saw the walkers in it, and I was like, oh, what are we getting into now? Like, what maniacal person is like raising zombies or whatever?
I thought the same thing.
Right? Like, what's next? And then I realized they're like in the street, kind of scattered everywhere. Like, okay, it's just kind of overrun with zombies. Like, oh my god, like what else could happen? Some kind of cattle call, the dinner bell rings, and zombies scatter.
Now, I mentioned a couple times the visual metaphor of the bleeding hand that won't stop. You know, I think they did a pretty, even though I kind of made fun of it throughout this episode, I think they did a pretty good job. You know, they went a little bit close to the pushing it. Like, I get it. He has a wound. It won't close. I get it. My real complaint with it, if there's anyone, is that I've seen that same or very similar thing on a ton of shows, even AMC shows. You know, The Fly with Breaking Bad. You got, I think, a Fawcett in an episode of Mad Men that wouldn't stop dripping. But I'm at least happy that they're trying. I think I said that the last time they introduced a visual metaphor. It might not be the most subtle thing, but at least they're trying. And I thought it worked well enough.
I thought it serviced the character well, and given
I agree.
that I like the character Abraham a lot, it helped for me. Like I was fine with it. Like again, the show, as opposed to nailing us with dialogue, it just nails us with a visual metaphor, which I much more prefer. So.
Oh, amen to that. Amen to that. Before we get into our ratings and the Nielsen ratings and what our listeners thought, Russ, who is our wonderful sponsor?
Our sponsor for this episode of the Walking Dead TV podcast is Discount Comic Book Service, DCBService.com, where you can save a ton of money on all your comics, graphic novels, statues, toys, all kinds of stuff. If you can order it out of the Diamond Previews catalog, you can get it from DCB Service. You can also get digital comics from DCB Service through their Comixology portal. So if you're more a fan of digital these days than print, you can earn 5% back on your digital purchases towards a future purchase with Discount Comic Book Service. Maybe you want to save up for that special hardcover collection or omnibus or crazy large hardcover of your choice or statues, etc. You could do that there as well. Some highlighted items this month. Walking Dead number 136 is out. It'll be 40% off and $1.79. There's a bunch of, every month they've been doing lately these image bundles where you can get a bunch of the new Image comics all bundled together for half off, which is a fantastic deal. As well as all new Marvel and DC hardcovers are always 50% off if you pre-order them. The November orders are up. Lots of good stuff there. They don't mind late orders or order editions, so feel free to make changes. They're just awesome people to work with. A lot of us have been dealing with them and been customers of them for many years now. So go on and check out DCBService.com or their sister site, InStockTrades.com.
And we thank them for their patronage. So, gentlemen, it is time for our Buster ratings. Of course, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Let's go in reverse alphabetical order, just because. And Russ, what would you give this episode? How many Busters?
I got 4. It was just a good, solid episode. Nothing really blew me away, but just good, solid characterization. And I like we got characterization from folks that we haven't seen a whole lot of. I mean, Eugene, Abraham, and Rosita got a lot of highlights in this episode, which was nice. And again, well written, well directed, and just a really strong ending. Like I said, regardless of what you thought about last week's episode, it did have a strong ending. So the fact that we're getting kind of multiple episodes here, we're getting strong endings is a good thing.
Well, after last week's episode, I immediately was thinking this one's a 5. It's a 5. But when I really stop and think about it, I go with Russ on that. It's a solid 4. I was very happy to see more depth put on Abraham and Eugene and their relationship, and as to why the difference in how he came upon the story, well, not the difference, but how it was revealed than it was in the comics, so that it gave us a little something new for those of us that knew that this guy was full of it. Overall, definitely a strong episode for the season.
I am at a 5. This is my favorite episode of the season so far. It's my favorite episode of Walking Dead in a very long time, I would think, actually, if I were to recollect my various star ratings for a lot of episodes from this season and last season. And I just think it did everything that I want in a Walking Dead episode. I think the performance is very strong. I like the characterization. I like that it was a straight told story without any interaction from Rick and the gang or anybody else. It was just focused on these core characters. I think the zombie action was well done in an episode that is very, very character focused. It still managed to put room in for very cool and creative zombie action. I haven't seen zombies get hit by high-powered hoes before, so that was awesome. And I mean, visually, I like the direction of this episode, as I mentioned before, just kind of visual storytelling and the metaphors and whatnot. It just did everything I want. And so yeah, I'm at a 5 out of 5 for self-help.
I will go a little bit lower. I'm going to go with Russ and Rich on this one. I'm going to give it a 4. Very solid episode. It didn't blow me away, but I was very happy with it. I really liked the humor in particular. It had some very dark moments in the episode with both the ending and the flashbacks and some good zombie action, but it was really the humor that kept pulling me into it. I like that quite a bit. I love seeing the character interactions and more of a spotlight on Abraham and Eugene and Rosita, really livening up things a little bit by bringing some new life into the group. And I think Tara, Glenn, and Maggie really fit in well with them. So in general, very happy with this episode, and it is a solid 4. But Aaron, what did our listeners think of the episode?
Well, our listeners over at the Facebook page, facebook.com/WDTV podcast, they had a lot to say because we had a lot of ratings. Just going to read through them. Everard Maria has 4.25 fire hose knocking out zombie carnival games out of 5. Love the backstory on Abraham, although it makes him seemingly have a lot less grip on reality than he seems he's played up until this episode. I gotta keep reading these. There's a lot of these. Go through this whole paragraph. Susan has 4 dolphin smooth red-headed soldiers on a fake mission out of 5. I also enjoyed seeing Abraham's backstory. Georgia has
Wait, did she say backstory or backside?
Did it say backside? No, there's backstory.
No, that's just a joke.
It says backstory. It could have. Who knows?
Dolphin smooth.
Let's see. Mike Jones has 4 cups of toilet water out of 5. My main issue with the production of the episode. Some scenes were too dark for too long. Some hard to hear dialogue. Couldn't read the note Abraham read in his flashback. Mike Jones has turned up his TV. Apparently, that's all I know.
I've heard a lot of people say, not just in our group though, a lot of people had problems with the brightness levels and the audio mix this episode. I did not have any of them. There were certainly some scenes that were dark, but it was nighttime. So yeah, it's not just his problem. It seems to be a widespread thing.
Fair enough. Robin Young Sanders has 3.5 self-help books. I like the flashback scenes. Eugene had good moments. I like Glenn stepping up some more. Actually, a brief moment I thought Maggie was finally going to mention her sister, but no. Overall, not horrible, but kind of meant for me. Lisa Gonzalez has 2 mullets, maybe because I knew what was coming up in the story that I was so bored I longed for a song by Beth to liven things up. Brent Jones has 3.75 dirty, stinky, undaved, naked bodies slapping together out of 5. A lot of creative ones this week, guys. I'm liking this. I enjoyed this one, but it made me like Abe a lot less as it went on. It's one thing to put the mission first. It's another to be pigheaded about it. Like Glenn having some flashes of season 1/2 Glenn. Let's see. Belinda Clark has a 2 out of 5 lying liars who lie. At least now they can go back to the rest of the group. I don't like the separation of the group. I didn't like the lighting. I didn't care about Abraham's background story, and the bus crash was so lame. Such a plot point as to be ridiculous. It felt like wasted time to me. Max has 4 out of 5 hose downs. I'm glad we didn't wait too long for the whole Eugene being a liar thing. I was afraid it would take the rest of the season or longer for our groups to reunite, but that'll probably fix that. Tara's quickly become my favorite character. She doesn't do a ton. She pulls her own weight. Shalem has 4.5 sore sacks out of 5. Eugene deserved that punch. Much happier after last week. I love the pace of the show now. Looks like that slow Beth episode will pay off next week. Mary is giving this one a 4 out of 5. Peeping Eugene. Love the background of Abraham. Rosita finally said more than 2 words. Not too happy with the group specific episode since it looks like we're getting another next week. Sorry for the spoiler, Jerry. happy with the pacing of that episode 2 and Eugene's reveal. I didn't want that dragged out. Ian has 4 out of 5 Tennessee top hats, so much better than last week. No more fist bumps. This makes me cringe. Luke has 3 out of 5. Enjoyable episode, but like a few others I knew was coming. Richard, Chopper Cherry Charrington, 3 washed down walkers out of 5. Not my favorite episode, but good to see Abraham's backstory and to see Eugene confess. Going to miss next 2 weeks episodes as holiday in good old USA, so shall be avoiding the podcast until we return home and have to catch up on recorded episodes. Trisha Terry Collins, 4 Abraham's bloody hands out of 5. Surprisingly enjoyed this one. Good to see more about the DC crowd and having a little more Maggie Glenn on the screen. Now on to Daryl Carroll and the rap one, not Beth. Jimmy Ducker, 4 canceled trips to DC out of 5. Good episode of nice backstory. Craig, 4 insanely fake spontaneous bus fires out of 5. However, again with the crazy dark lighting and inaudible dialogue. All right. Yeah, that's a lot of our various Facebook responses. Again, that's on Facebook page, facebook.com/WPDTV podcast. A lot of fun on there. Everyone's always interacting, posting a lot of fun stuff. So feel free to join the group and play around with us.
Yes, indeed. Richard, what did America think of this episode, at least in terms of houses watching in the United States?
Well, we had 13.53 million American viewers with a 7.0 rating on the 18 to 49 demographic. Now, that is down almost a million viewers from the prior week. I blame the prior week's episode for that. People probably felt like it wasn't worth watching this week after last week. That's just my opinion. Last week, we had a 7.6 on the 18 to 49 demographic, so that went down to a 7. That is all I really have.
And I know, at least the last 2 weeks, I'm not sure about this week, but the last 2 weeks, it beat Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
But for anyone listening outside the United States, that's a pretty big deal.
To put it in a little perspective, the Live Plus 7 ratings for the highest scripted television shows on air. So the Live Plus 7s for The Big Bang Theory is a 6.9. The live overnights are 4.6 for Big Bang Theory. Then you have like Modern Family's like a 3.4, and it kind of goes down from there. I mean, Scandal's a 3.0. So some of these shows that the NCIS is 2.4, the Live Plus 7s are 3.5. So some of these shows that are the highest rated shows on television, this little cable show is dwarfing them all
by double.
Yes.
So even though it's a little bit down, these numbers tend to ebb and flow a little bit. They get bigger at the season finales and mid-season finales and premieres. It's still stomping the floor, wiping the floor with its competition.
Well, good on the show.
Do you have anything else before closing?
Yeah, I just had one question for all of you, because I can't quite figure it out other than the dolphin smoothness of Abraham. Cutlass had tweeted out before the episode aired about, hey, America, this was one that the censors almost didn't allow through. What do you think about it?
I think
for AMC, I think we've seen a lot worse.
You've got to see quite a bit of butt in that shot.
I think Cutlass has a lot of Twitter followers and is able to tweet something that made people interested.
He also seems like a pretty affable guy. He might have just been joking.
I think it's a mix of those two things, Jordan. I think it's the kind of thing that gets pulled way out of proportion as far as what we're really supposed to expect from the show that's delivered many child killings over the years. I mean,
including tonight's or last night's episode.
Yeah,
You'll never guess what almost got The Walking Dead banned this week.
Exactly.
Click here.
It's like perhaps saying Robert Kirkman says this week's going to heat up things even more than last. Like it's not. It's just like, hey, that show you're watching, you should probably watch it again this week because why not? That's what it amounts to.
So we're going to close things out now, and then of course right after that we'll talk about next week's episode, so we can avoid spoiling those who'd like to stay unspoiled. But until next time, you can call us, leave us a voicemail at 972-798-3830, 972-798-3830, or send us an email, comments@walkingdeadtv.com. Check out hhwld.com for all of our great shows, like Half Hour Wasted, which is back, The Long Box of Doom, The Black Box, out now with Aaron and Abe, our weekly new release movie podcast, hosted by Aaron and his friend Abe, which is wonderful. We'll be talking about Interstellar this week.
Yep, fun conversation we had on that one.
I can imagine. And lots of other shows. Jersey Shore is back, the Icapod Cranecast, and many, many more. If it's nerdy, if it's fun, we've probably got a podcast or 7 talking about it. So check out hhwld.com for lots more great content. It's all on iTunes, it's all on Stitcher. You just can't avoid it. So just start listening now. It's going to happen eventually. Might as well get on the train. You can follow us on Twitter at WDTV Podcast and at HHWLOD_network. Aaron, who are you on Twitter?
At Aaron's PS4.
Richard?
At ChubToad01.
Russ?
At R. Latham.
That's RLTATHAM, and I'm at Jordan FRM Jersey. And so until there's no more room left in Hell and Dead Walk the Earth, remember, I've been to 8 county fairs and 1 goat rodeo, and I've never seen anything like this. Have a good weekend, everybody. Next week on The Walking Dead, again, spoilers, Jerry, if you don't want to know, cut out now. Episode 506 is entitled Consumed. And actually, all the next 3 episodes, which we only have 3 more episodes this year, all start with the letter C. Spoilers. But Consumed will be airing next week, and the synopsis we have on TV Guide is members of the group venture into a familiar location on a heroic rescue mission. And we know from the previews that this will be a Carol and Daryl episode. We don't know how much it will cross over with last week's episode, Slabtown, and whether that will... do you think we're going to get 1 episode to tie that up, or do you think it's going to take 2?
It may take 3 with them all starting with C.
I see them getting back to Rick's group by the end of at least 2 weeks from now.
Well, I was thinking we're going to see that next week, the Carol and Daryl thing, and then, because the way that episode ended with Daryl coming out of the woods, I was assuming that they haven't done the full rescue yet.
I don't know. I mean, we see in the preview scene Daryl burning a body, a smaller body, not quite a full grown adult size, not quite child size. I don't think from the scene that there's any way that's actually Beth. But I'm kind of thinking that they wrap it up next week or the week after that, and then the final episode will be everybody coming back together and a new threat or a new mission or something that will set them off for the next half of the season next year. But I don't see them taking 3 episodes.
I hope
really
not.
Don't.
And Cutlass said that body looked awfully Eugene-shaped, so...
By the way, they had such great chemistry on Talking Dead last night.
Yeah.
And Galen heard as well. I've seen her on the show as well before, and I don't think I'd say she was ever boring, but seeing her with the 2 of them, like the 3 of them had really great chemistry, was fun. It's nice to see actors getting along off screen as well.
I agree.
Even if they're not getting well together on screen.
And anytime I can see Gail and her talking about any of her work, Walking Dead is just a blip on the radar of the many cool things that she's done in her career, so...
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think that's it for this week's episode.